Our next speaker will be Cliff Slater. Cliff has been a regular columnist in the Honolulu Advertiser for a number of years. He worked very hard to kill a 1993 rail transit project, but as we will hear continually through this conference, it's trying to like slay a vampire. You can keep putting that wooden stake in the heart, and some yo-yo just keeps coming along and pulling it out. These things never die. Recently, I've been doing a little bit of work with him opposing another very dumb transit project. This time, however, it's not rail, it is a bus rapid transit project, which shows you that we are non-discriminatory. We will work against dumb transit no matter where it is. Cliff has, among other things, he has prepared an excellent paper, General Motors and the Demise of Streetcars. For those of you who have referred to the seminal work on this, namely Who Framed Roger Rabbit, there is another side to it, and I suggest strongly that all of you take a look at that paper to find out what actually went on with the well-known story of General Motors and how they and the tire companies and the oil companies through national city lines, etc., destroyed the streetcars. But for right now, let's hear about how to take on rail projects. Cliff Slater.
Okay, I'm going to talk today about three projects: the 1992-93 heavy rail project, which we were successful in defeating. We're currently fighting a bus rapid transit program, principally because its major component is the in-town portion. We don't object to the freeway portion, but the in-town portion on our congested streets is taking away lanes and giving them for the exclusive use of buses, and it's just crazy because we're already congested. We can't remove lanes from the streets. And then we're girding up for what looks like about a 2008 re-emergence of the heavy rail project, which is of course being called light rail because heavy rail is not a great marketing phrase, and so it's currently being called light rail. So on those three, and I can't do better than Cynthia talking about what you have to do with public opinion, because if you don't move public opinion, it doesn't matter what else you move, nothing's going to happen. Except when you get as far as the courts, when all else has failed. We started off with, and I think this is typical of most communities, people talk about rail transit and what it's going to do, and everybody goes, that sounds good, and you've got two to one in favor of it before they get down to the details. Okay, it's like, how would you like a Rolls Royce if they haven't mentioned the price? So we started off with that, and we worked diligently, and over a couple, 3 years, moved the 2 to 1 in favor to 71% against, and eventually, when it came to a vote in the City Council, well, the City Council had been originally 6 to 3 in favor. It finished up 5 to 4 opposed, and that was the end of that. From the advice that I can give you, one of the major things is to get in as early as you can in the process, okay? And you know, it's a long process. The federal NEPA process, National Environmental Policy Act. You may have the tax approval situation from voters. We didn't have that. Okay, we were in the visioning process, the DEIS, the SDEIS, the final environmental impact statement, the record of decision, and as we are currently with the BRT project, we are in federal court. And it is us, the Alliance for Traffic Improvement, versus the United States of America. As it is put, it's kind of daunting. But one basic principle that you have to understand in what you're up against is that the function of transit planning is to raise campaign funds for elected officials, excluding those present. Thank you so much. We've have figured out is good. You know, all these things are different in different communities, and I can only give you the experience in Honolulu. But we figure that 5% of the planning funds, which are all non-bid funds, okay? So all the funding is non-bid. And so it's discretionary. And so you have to get paid for using your discretion, and we figure it costs about 5%. So if you're talking about $10 million of planning money, we've got a small project. We've so far spent $20 million in the planning. Okay, so on a $20 million deal, you've got $1 million will come back in campaign contributions, and you know, you divide that up about, depends on how many elected officials will be weighing in on the issue. That can be the single biggest contribution that they'll ever get over maybe 2 or 3 election cycles. You must not, you know, underestimate the power of that amount of money in local elections. It may not be so much in a Senate, you know, U.S. senatorial campaign, but in the campaign for council, in a campaign for a state legislature, this is an enormous amount of money. Let me repeat, the function of transit planning is to raise campaign funds. Okay, that's what you're up against when talking to elected officials. Okay, many unions will also be on their side in these things. On the construction, the union constructions, the union, like in Honolulu, the Teamsters Union, they get nervous and typically opposed to these things because they can see that the light rail or whatever it is that is being implemented may very well finish up with members of a different union, and they won't like that. So unless they've got rock hard assurances ahead of time, they will be, you can use those in opposition. But in that process, as I say, get in as early as you can on the process and see where you can affect it. Rebut every single thing that you can do. You've got to throw a lot of mud at the wall. You must never let them get away with anything. And when they stand up to make a comment on TV, you must be down at the TV station asking for time to rebut. You've got to have your moles out there in city government and in state government, and you get the forewarning that somebody is going to make a statement on what they have said, and you are on the phone to the news people at the TV stations, and you want equal time because what they are spreading is misinformation. And that's, you know, it's very important. As what one politician in Honolulu once said, and it's very smart cookie, he said, there's only 3 kinds of campaigning that is worthwhile, and that's television and television and television. And the 6 o'clock news is it. That's the credibility. Maybe in another town it's the 7 o'clock news, but in our town it's the 6 o'clock news, and we endeavor to be on that all the time. With elected officials, their primary concern is get to be re-elected. So the only thing that with campaign contributions coming in for transit projects, and with unions, more of the unions typically being on the side of it, okay, your voice is nothing unless you threaten their re-election. And so you have to be out there. Cynthia said, you have to be out there talking to the voters. There is nothing that will warm your hearts more than to see an elected official getting 100 faxes from constituents opposed to a rail project. That frightens the life out of them, because they know that for every fax they get, there's another 200 people who are thinking about sending the fax. So You know, the phone calls and the faxes from constituents, not from somebody who doesn't elect them, but from their constituents, critically important. Unfortunately, in the rail project we succeeded. In the second project, what Tom's been involved in, I thought the project was so bad, I just couldn't believe that. I kept writing about it. This is just so, it's so bad, there's no point doing it. You know, they can't possibly go ahead with this. Well, they're going ahead with it. And so we finished up with only having time to really get involved in the last part of the process, okay, which is the legal things. Why I'm in federal court right now. I don't advise it because, I mean, the dice are really loaded against you. They have the court is required, and to put this, courts must not substitute their judgment for that of the agency, okay? That's what, you know, the judge is there, their hands are tied. They are given also the instructions that they must give due deference to the agency. So it doesn't even matter what kind of evidence that you can offer that's solid, rock solid stuff. They've got to give due deference to the agency. So what you finish up is having to deal with the process, that they've violated the process. You can't talk about the facts. It's worthless. You know, as Cynthia said earlier, I came away from our 93 campaign with an enormous amount of respect for the guy in the street. The guy in the street doesn't carry any baggage. You go to talk to somebody high up in our corporations, you are really, leave aside small business. You talk to the top leaders, the bankers, the whatever, they're carrying so much baggage, intellectual baggage, they can't even think straight. Okay? It's worthless talking to them. The people to talk to, guy in the street, small business people, and those are the people who will listen. The small business people really understand the implications of the finance, okay? And the guy in the street just understands that the priorities are wrong. You know, they're all doing the budget over the kitchen table, okay? They understand that things have to be prioritized, and so they'll understand that. The big thing is that when you're going out for the voters, you've got to have credibility. You can't go out there alone. You've got to have support coalitions. We had the League of Women Voters on our side. We got the Green Party on our side. You can't get the two main parties. The Teamsters Union, we had that. We had the Small Business Coalition. We had Hawaii's 1,000 Friends on the environmental side. So when we went out to talk to television, certainly in the early stages, okay, we had credibility, real credibility. So, with 2 minutes to come up, let me just want to reiterate what I said earlier. The function of transit planning is to raise campaign funds. Okay. Doesn't even matter. So that much where the project gets built, the planning money, it's a huge amount of money. Talking to the legislature, talking to elected officials.
You lost something on.
Did I? The battery ran out. Okay. Talking to elected officials, those present excluded, okay, is a complete waste of time for the most part. You could get to a small minority on logic, but I mean such a small minority that it doesn't really make the difference. But you can talk to them if you can convince them that their re-election is at stake, that you are affecting public opinion in their area. Normally, they're so well attuned to that you don't have to tell them. So you're much better off spending your time talking to the man in the street, talking to every Rotary Club, every Kiwanis, every time you get 6 people to sit down together, that you talk to them. And that is going to have a bigger effect than ever talking to an elected official. If you want to see some of the stuff that I've written on this, if you just do a search on Cliff Slater in quotes, it'll all come up. And also on our present deal, we last time was too early to have a website. This time we've got a website, honolulutraffic.com. Really gives you a flavor of the whole thing, of the BRT situation.
What was the website?
Honolulu Traffic, one word, honolulutraffic.com.
Okay, we have time for 2 questions right now. Yes, sir.
I don't have any reason to doubt what you said about the connection between campaign funds and transportation planning.
Good.
Have you documented that in a way that would help us in other localities use that as an argument?
You know what, we could, okay, but it's going to be slightly different in each locality, okay. We've got a wonderful campaign contribution scandal going on right now, and virtually everything it comes from the people who are involved with the bus rapid transit program, or were involved with the former rail transit deal. Okay, but we don't have it documented. But I mean, if you look at the Honolulu Advertiser past issues, you can see it's a big issue.
I'll just say from my own experience, many states have requirements on campaign finance disclosure. California has a very strong one, and a lot of it is just going down to the Hall of Records and pulling it out and going through line by line. It's very intense manual work, and finding out where the contributions came from. In many cases, it is not the corporation or partnership or whatever, but you have to go down to the individual level, and in some states, including California, you have to, if you're making a contribution of a certain size, you have to disclose who your employer is. So it takes a fair amount of work. It is not high brain power. Anyone with a room temperature IQ and an interest can do it, but it is a lot of work to go through it, particularly if you have an entire city council with 7 or 15 members and a mayor and some other local elected officials. But in many states, the information is there if you do the research. One more question. Yes, sir, in the back.
Yes. One lady said that she got the unions to be supportive against the light rail, and I think you were intimating that the unions weren't on your side. What makes a difference? How do you get them?
Well, it depends, you know, whose ox is getting gored there. The Teamsters were on our side, none of the others. Okay, all the other unions, especially the construction people, were very much in favor of this. A lot of work for their members. The Teamsters were worried about losing members to possibly workers on the rail transit line. They were opposed to it. That's that simple.